Rhomeyn, you mentioned a few times kind of having to choose between what you wanted to do in life and a relationship.
Right.
And I think there's a lot of pressure on people, especially under 30, to make that choice and to get settled down. If there's someone listening right now, and let's suppose they have something that's a good offer, or they have something that's promising in one city, and then they have someone in another city that they probably still care about, and a life that's quote unquote planned out, but they're on the fence. What kind of, like, let's say, big brother advice would you give someone?
Follow your heart. You have to always follow your heart, because if somebody has your life planned out for you, that's a problem right there. Because unless you have your life planned out the same way they have it planned out, it's not gonna work. Because eventually you're gonna, you always hear about people outgrowing each other. Well, we outgrew each other. What that means is you didn't outgrow them, you just grew up. And you know what I'm saying? I mean, it's not like you don't care or love them. It's just that you've evolved. When I say grow up, you've evolved into who you are, who you want to be. And if it's not in that cookie cutter kind of thing that they have planned for you, and they have you boxed in here, have you boxed in, and you grow and you outside of that box, that's conflict. So you have to be who you are, and hopefully that person or someone else will be in line with what you're doing, because you got to be happy. I mean, nothing worse than being in a relationship. I've been there, where you're trying to be something that you're not. You're trying to conform to somebody else's expectations, trying to be what they want you to be. It's not gonna work, because eventually you're gonna bolt from that. You're gonna run from that, because the real you is always gonna come forward. You can't be phony in a relationship. You can't. It's impossible, because eventually you can't act in a relationship. You can act on stage, you can act, wherever else, but you can't act in a relationship. You can't be this person, yes dear, whatever you say dear. You can't do that but so long. Eventually you're gonna just say, oh, fuck this, I can't do this. And then, it's gonna explode. So you have to be you. And if it means that you have to, let that relationship go, then you have to let it go. I mean, life is hard, as we all know. I mean, you can't be what somebody else wants you to be. You have to be who you want to be. And like I said, if it doesn't fit what they want you to be too, then it's not gonna work.
Do you think creative people have a tougher time in a relationship than, and I'm not saying people that have a 9-to-5 aren't creative.
Oh yeah, I know what you're saying.
But people that choose creativity as their vocation as well as their passion, sort of thing.
Yeah, we do.
Why do you think that is?
Because to be an artist of whatever type, whether you're a painter or a musician or whatever, a rapper or whatever, to be that, you have to really, really dedicate yourself to that, to be good at it. Because there's competition. And when you first start out, there's no competition for me. Yeah, there is. Because in this world, and being a professional out here, you have to be really, really into what you do. Now, I'm gonna tell you something personally. I used to smoke a lot of weed and get high way back years ago. And I had a buddy of mine who was actually the guy selling me the weed back home, pull me aside. I'm at his place, beautiful, beautiful house. He pulls me, we got all the buddies sitting around, smoking weed, because I used to love smoking weed. Now, don't get me wrong, I loved it. But he pulled me aside and he said, come here, I want to talk to you. So all the guys sitting and say, oh, he's gonna take him to the good stuff, the good stash, another room. He got me another room. He says, you know what? He said, me and you've been friends since the 5th grade. He said, you leaving Chicago, you going to Hollywood. He said, you can't be getting high like this out there. Right. He said, the competition is heavy. You're gonna be going up against the major people for stuff. He said, you gotta focus more. You gotta get out of this. And that stuck to me. I'm like, wow. And he says, I don't have to sell you none of this stuff. I got customers all over buying my weed and whatever. He said, I don't have to do that with you. Me and you are like best friends, like brothers. He said, you got to think in terms of, sacrificing something to get where you want to go. I'm like, wow. So shortly after that, I quit smoking weed. It's been over 20-something years now.
Wow.
And I smoked so much that people were like, you quit? I'm like, yeah. Because I had to say, you know what? He was right. And once I stopped doing that, things started really falling into place. My focus and my concentration got stronger. And it's not because, okay, my mind wasn't cloudy from weed, because smoking weed was fun to me, but it became a point where, okay, it's a thing of discipline. So getting back to what you were saying, it's all about being who you are and being honest with yourself about who you are and not let anybody sidetrack you. You can't be what a wife or a girlfriend, or if you're a woman or whatever, or a guy with a boyfriend or whatever. You can't let somebody take you away from who you are and what you want to be. Because being an artist is not a job. It's a calling. It's a life. We all artistic. You're artistic. We all are artists. This is a life for us. And you have to explain to people. And see, 9-to-5 people, they have a tendency to see things in the sense of a job. Okay, yeah, well, we get jobs. I just did a job and I got a couple coming up in the business, but it's my life. It's not like, okay, I'm going to cut it off, Yeah, I cut it off a lot of times when I get home because I'm watching the Lakers or somebody, or, watching something on TV or something, or sitting around, doing something or reading a book or something. Yeah, you have to unwind and relax and get away from stuff at times. But you have to know who you are. You have to know who you are, and you have to say, okay, this is who I am. You got to accept me for who I am, or I got to go. And that happened to me a couple of times, where they say, well, okay, this is not it for me. I'm like, hey. Now, the first one probably still hates me when I was real young. The last one, we became friends. And we talk all the time, and she's in Chicago. She makes a couple of $300,000 or $400,000 a year, got a beautiful house in Chicago, got a Mercedes and all that, and driving around, and she's very attractive, and she's the businesswoman. I'm like, hey, I'm happy for you. I'm proud of you. And most of my family and friends that I grew up with are 9-to-5 people. So I don't have any problem with that. I just know who I am, and I know what's best for me, because like I say, I got fired from every real 9-to-5 job I've ever had. I got fired from my first job was a paper boy. They fired me.
Why'd they fire you?
Oh, because I wanted to play baseball. All my friends were playing baseball, and I'm out with a damn wagon, throwing papers up on the porch, and all my friends hitting baseball. I'm like, I'm 12 years old. I'm like, damn. So I ended up saying, okay, I got to figure out a way to not get fired necessarily, but I got to figure out a way to do as little of this job as possible. So there was a Dairy Queen on the end of my route, and it was at 10 cents or whatever, and I had little buddies in the neighborhood, younger kids who would go with me on my route, and I would lay on my wagon and point to the houses for them to run and take the papers. And so one of my customers called the man at the paper station, my manager, and he came out and he says, hey, what are you doing? And I sat up like this, and he says, see me at the end of the day. And I knew, when I went back, to the place, I said, oh man, I'm in some serious trouble. I got fired. So I didn't go home and tell my mom and daddy that I was fired. Naturally, being 12, you're kind of stupid. So what you do is like, okay, I can't tell mom and daddy I got fired. So I would leave the house every day and go up to the school, the little playground in school, and I would sit over on the side at the playground for 2-3 hours every day, sit there like I was on my route. And finally one day it rained. It was raining cats and dogs. it was raining. And so I was like, oh. So I was leaving out, and my dad said, oh, you can't go out there in the rain. I'm gonna go with you. I'm gonna help you do your route today. I was like, what? And, I was always in trouble for something. So my father says, wait a minute. You are going to do your route. I'm like, he says, what happened? So I had to let him know I got fired. He said, you got fired? He said, when? I said, 3 weeks ago. My mama says, 3 weeks ago? They said, where were you going when you leave the house every day? I said, I was going up to the school up there with my little school. I was going up there sitting on the playground. They looked at me like, you have to be out of your mind. So that's what I was doing. I mean, you know, I'm telling you, and that started a long, long life of getting fired from every job. I mean, every regular job. They fired me from NRG, the job I was doing the movie pass. They fired me.